You wake up and you don't feel like doing anything. No spark, no drive. Maybe you roll over, grab your phone, scroll for 30 minutes trying to find something that makes you feel alive. You tell yourself, I just need to get motivated. But here's the truth. Motivation is lying to you. It's not something that arrives before the work. It's something that shows up after the work begins. The biggest myth people believe about motivation is that it's some magical force that strikes out of nowhere. Like lightning, it's supposed to hit you, light your soul on fire, and carry you through the hardest days. That's the lie. Real motivation, real drive. It comes after you take the first step, not before. Think about the last time you didn't want to do something. Maybe a workout, a call, or starting that project you've been avoiding. You probably sat around waiting for the right mood to hit, but it never came, did it? Yet, on the rare occasion when you forced yourself to just start, something shifted. You got found rhythm, you created momentum. And with that momentum, motivation followed. Motivation doesn't precede action. Action creates motivation. That's why the people you see as driven or relentless are not superhuman. They're not fueled by an endless supply of inner fire. They've simply mastered the habit of moving regardless of how they feel. They start without permission from their emotions. And in starting, you have a screwed up life. Ignite the very motivation everyone else is sitting around hoping will magically appear. If you wait until you feel like it, you'll be waiting forever. Life doesn't wait. Opportunity doesn't wait. Time doesn't wait. You don't get to pause the world until your mind catches up. What you do get, what you always have, is the power to move, to act, to choose the first step, however small. And here's what's crazy. The mind is wired to follow the body. When you move, your mind starts catching up. You may feel tired, lazy, uninspired. But when you take that first action, your psychology begins to shift. It doesn't take hours. Sometimes it's 30 seconds of courage, a 5-minute start, one choice to push past resistance. That's all it takes to flip the switch. Most people think they lack motivation, but what they actually lack is movement. They're paralyzed by overthinking, consumed by self-doubt, waiting for clarity and certainty before they begin. But clarity doesn't come from thinking. It comes from doing. When you move, you learn. When you act, you grow. When you begin, you discover what's possible. Sitting still feeds anxiety. Movement starves it. That restless energy inside you, it doesn't get solved by thinking harder. It gets solved by doing something, anything. When you act, you regain a sense of control, and control is power. It's the antidote to helplessness. The cure to that lost feeling. You take one action and suddenly you remember you're not stuck. You're just idle. Your brain rewards movement, literally. When you begin a task, even reluctantly, your brain releases dopamine, the very chemical that drives motivation. This means the act of starting triggers the exact feeling you were waiting for in the first place. You don't get motivated to act. You act and get motivated. And no, it doesn't have to be perfect. Waiting for the perfect plan is just procrastination dressed up as strategy. You don't need the whole path, just the first step. The path reveals itself through motion. What matters is momentum. Tiny steps become strides. One rep becomes a routine. One page becomes a book. But none of it begins until you stop negotiating with your emotions and start acting in spite of them. The people you look up to, the ones building, creating, pushing. They don't feel like it every day. But they've trained their nervous systems to link progress with motion. They've learned that discipline eats motivation for breakfast because discipline doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline asks what needs to be done. Motivation is fickle. Some days it shows up. Most days it doesn't. But discipline shows up whether you're tired, uncertain, or scared. And once you act from discipline, that energy transforms. Your physiology shifts, your state shifts, and what seemed impossible 5 minutes ago starts to feel manageable, even exciting. If you really want to change your life, stop chasing motivation, start chasing action. Do it tired, do it uninspired, do it unprepared. Because action doesn't just create motivation, it creates belief. Every time you do the thing you didn't feel like doing, your life, you're proving yourself that you're stronger than your excuses. You're rewriting your story, not with grand declarations, but with small, consistent choices. The world is full of people waiting to feel ready. You don't need to be one of them. You don't need to wait another day, another week, another year. The clock is ticking. The window is open. Your move. Laziness isn't your problem. That tired, foggy, unmotivated version of you isn't some permanent flaw in your character. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not less than anyone else who's out there grinding. What you are is disconnected, not from effort, not from ability, but from purpose. You don't need more energy. You need a reason. When you don't know why you're doing something, everything becomes heavy. Every task feels forced. Every hour drags. You wake up with no fire, no clarity, no direction. You hit snooze not because you're physically exhausted, but because your life feels emotionally empty. Purpose is the fuel. Without it, even the smallest effort feels like a mountain. People often label themselves as lazy when what they're really experiencing is resistance. Not resistance to work, resistance to meaningless work. The human spirit is built to strive, to grow, to build something bigger than itself. But when your days are filled with empty routines and shallow distractions, your body reacts, it slows down, it shuts off. Not because it's lazy, but because it's trying to tell you something. That you're meant for more than survival. You're wired for significance. You've probably noticed that you're not lazy in every area of life. There are moments when you come alive, maybe in conversation, creativity, and competition. Moments when you lose track of time, when you feel fully present, fully human. That's not random. That's your soul recognizing alignment. That's purpose trying to speak through the noise. You're not lazy in those moments because your mind and your mission are finally connected. Disconnection breeds apathy. When you don't see how your effort matters, you stop showing up for yourself. Why try when nothing changes? Why push when the payoff feels hollow? But that's not laziness. That's a lack of meaning. And meaning doesn't fall into your lap. It's not found scrolling a feed or chasing shallow validation. It's found in the work that speaks to your values, your heart, your higher self. Purpose gives pain a reason. It turns discipline into devotion. It transforms the grind into something sacred. When you know why you're suffering, you can carry more than you ever thought possible. When your actions serve something beyond yourself, fatigue loses its grip. What once felt draining starts to energize you. Because now you're not just working, you're building, you're serving, you're becoming. That's the difference between those who burn out and those who burn bright. It's not just the workload, it's the why. One person lifts because they have to. Another lifts because they're training for something bigger. One writes because they're told to. Another writes because they can't not write. Same action, different spirit, different result. Purpose doesn't make life easy, but it makes it worth it. It gives you a reason to wake up, to stay up, to rise when everything in you says give up. It gives your struggle context. Without that context, even success feels empty. That's why so many people achieve their goals and still feel lost. They chased outcomes without ever asking what those outcomes were supposed to mean. You don't need to have your entire life figured out to reconnect to purpose. You just need to start asking deeper questions. What moves you? What angers you? What excites you? What would you do if you knew one would judge you? The answers to those questions are not fluff. They are the breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself. There's no formula, no one-size-fits-all answer. Purpose is personal. It's not a job title or a paycheck or a social media bio. It's what your presence makes possible. It's how your struggle serves. It's the energy you bring into a room, the story you're telling through the life you live. When you forget that, you feel stuck. Not because you lack potential, but because you're misaligned. You can't hustle your way out of misalignment. You can grind force, you can push. But if you're not connected to purpose, burnout is inevitable. That's not laziness. That's your spirit saying, this isn't it. This path doesn't fit. This life doesn't speak your name. When you realign, everything changes. It doesn't mean things get easier, but they get clearer. The resistance doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip. Your steps start to mean something again. You stop dragging yourself through life and start driving yourself forward with intention. Purpose isn't a destination. It's a lens. It changes how you see everything. Your work, your pain, your choices, your future. You're not broken for feeling tired of a life that doesn't speak to you. You're not wrong for wanting more than just going through the motions. You were never meant to live numb, to grind through days without soul. When purpose fades, so does vitality. But when purpose returns, even your tired bones remember what it means to move with conviction. There's a lie that keeps millions stuck in the same loop for years, and the belief that you have to wait until you feel clear, certain, and confident before you act. That if you just sit still long enough, think hard enough, journal deeply enough, then one day clarity will hit you like a lightning bolt. But it won't. Clarity doesn't come to those who sit still. It comes to those who move. Confidence isn't born in your head. It's built in your hands. By doing the thing you're unsure of again and again until you realize you can. You're not stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because you're trying to think your way out of a situation that requires action. Overthinking is a form of fear wearing the mask of logic. It tells you that you're just being careful, just being smart. But what you're really doing is waiting for certainty in a world that doesn't offer it. There's no perfect moment. There's only now. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets to start. You don't need all the answers to take the first step. You only need a willingness to begin. Movement creates feedback. Feedback creates learning. Learning creates clarity. That's the real formula. That's how people grow. They step into the unknown, gather information through experience, and then adjust. That's how momentum is born. Not by reading another book, not by overanalyzing every detail, but by doing something real, even if it's messy, even if it's small. The myth of confidence is that it comes from preparation. But real confidence, the unshakable kind, comes from exposure, from doing the scary thing and realizing it didn't break you. It comes from surviving what you once feared and walking out the other side stronger. You can't study your way into that kind of confidence. You can't intellectualize your way into it. You have to earn it through motion. You might be telling yourself you're waiting until you're ready, but ready is just another word for comfortable. And comfort zones don't create clarity. They create confusion disguised as safety. The longer you stay there, the more tangled your thoughts become. The path you think you're protecting by waiting is actually growing colder, more distant, harder to reach. Action is what heats it up again. Action is what reignites direction. Every time you move, you learn something. You learn what works and what doesn't. You learn what lights you up and what drains you. You learn what you're good at, what you need to get better at, what makes you come alive. These aren't insights you find in stillness. They are revealed through action, through engagement with the real world. It's not about having a perfect plan. It's about having enough courage to start walking and trusting that you'll figure it out as you go. The map gets clearer as you move. The fog doesn't lift all at once. It clears with every step forward. Waiting for the whole picture before you begin is like refusing to drive at night until you can see the entire road. The headlight don't show you miles ahead. They show you the next few feet. And that's enough. Drive those feet and the next ones appear. Confidence builds when you prove to yourself that you can keep showing up. Not when you feel amazing. Not when everything's lined up perfectly. But when it's messy, hard, uncertain, and you show up anyway. Every small action, every imperfect try stacks evidence in your favor. It tells your brain, I'm capable, I'm resilient. I don't need guarantees to take the next step. That's how confidence becomes your default. Clarity isn't a gift. It's a reward, and it's earned through engagement, not escape. You don't find it by hiding from life, by numbing out, by waiting for motivation to show up at your door. You find it by getting your hands dirty, by creating, by failing, by adjusting, by moving. Every single person you admire for their clarity didn't wait to feel ready. They made mistakes, made progress. Confidence and clarity were byproducts of action, not prerequisites. The irony is, once you begin moving, things start to make sense. You start to see the connections. You stop obsessing over the right choice because you understand that the right choice is the one that keeps you moving, growing, testing your edge. Clarity isn't about knowing the end. It's about trusting the process enough to keep going without seeing it. You won't think your way into a meaningful life. You'll act your way into it. You'll move, you'll build, you'll fall, and in the middle of the mess, something sharp will cut through direction, a sense of self, a sense of power. And with every next step, confidence will no longer feel like a distant dream. It will become your natural state. There's a moment, usually quiet, usually in the middle of a low point. When it hits you, no one is coming, not to save you, not to fix it, not to pull you out. And it's in that moment that one of two things happens. You either break or you rise. The difference isn't strength. It's responsibility. It's realizing that your life is your job. Your pain is your problem. Your healing, your growth, your change. It's all on you. Not because people don't care, but because no one can do it for you. People can support you. People can walk beside you, but no one can walk for you. No one can face the hard truths inside your head. No one can sit in your silence and find your answers. No one can build your discipline, carry your pain, make your choices. That's your weight to lift. And that's not punishment. That's power. Because the moment you stop waiting to be rescued, you become unstoppable. The world doesn't owe you understanding. It doesn't owe you closure, fairness, or a clear path forward. Waiting for someone to hand you a better life is the fastest way to waste the one you already have. You could spend years hoping else will finally see you, validate you, push you, save you, screwed up life. Or you could decide that you're enough right now to begin rebuilding from the ground up. The truth is, no one is coming because no one can. They're not inside your mind. They don't feel what feel when you wake up in the dark with that pit in your chest. They can't hear the voice that tells you you're not good enough or strong enough or ready. That voice, that's yours. And only you can face it. You don't fight it by sitting around waiting for inspiration. You fight it by doing the things you said you couldn't do, one hard decision at a time. Stop handing over your power to people, to circumstances, to the past. You weren't born to be rescued. You were born to remember who you are and to reclaim what you've handed away. It's easy to point outward, to say, if they hadn't hurt me, or if life was fair, or if I had more help. But the real shift happens when you say, even though they hurt me, even though life isn't fair, I still get to decide what I do next. That's where your freedom lies. There's nothing more dangerous than waiting for permission to change your life. You don't need permission. You need action. You need to stop waiting for the right mood, the perfect timing, the right words. Those things don't build futures. Decisions do. And no one can make those for you. Not your parents, not your partner, not your friends, not your mentors. They can guide. They can support. But at the end of the day, it's your hands that build, your feet that move, your choices that shape what happens next. It's a brutal truth, but it's also the most liberating one you'll ever accept. Because when you stop waiting, you stop depending. You stop hesitating. You stop doubting your capacity. When you realize that no cavalry is coming over the hill, you finally start building your own armor. And you learn to move not in fear, but in power. The kind of power that comes from showing up for yourself every single day, even when no one else sees it. You are your own backup plan, your own motivation, your own hero. You have a screwed up life. That doesn't mean you never fall, it means when you get back up, not because someone told you to, but because that's who you are now. The kind of person who faces what needs to be faced, does what needs to be done, and doesn't shrink when life gets heavy. It's not about pretending to be invincible. It's about being relentless in the face of everything that says you shouldn't be. Most people will never take full responsibility for their lives. It's easier to blame, to complain, to coast. It's easier to hope someone else figures it out. But easy doesn't build legacy. Easy doesn't create fulfillment, and easy definitely doesn't change lives. Hard does. And the hardest thing you'll ever do is stop running from the truth that your life is yours to fix. Your potential, your peace, your power, they're waiting on you. You already have what it takes. It's not something you need to find or buy or be given. It's already there, buried beneath the fear, the doubt, the distractions, the noise. The question is whether you're willing to go deep enough to reclaim it, whether you'll keep waiting for someone else to tell you what you've known all along, that you are the one, you are the plan, you are the answer, you're the one who decides where it goes from here. The future doesn't arrive all at once. It doesn't crash through your door in some dramatic wave of transformation. It doesn't explode into your life with one massive moment that changes everything forever. That's the myth. The truth is simpler and far more powerful. Your future is built in the quiet, in the small, in the decisions that seem insignificant when you make them, but stack up with relentless consistency over time. You don't become who you want to be in one leap. You shape it one choice at a time. Every day you are casting votes for the kind of person you're becoming. Every decision, no matter how small, is a brick. And bricks don't look like much on their own, but stack enough and place them with intention and you build something, a foundation, a wall, a shelter, a fortress. The people who change their lives aren't the ones who make massive, rare moves. They're the ones who master the art of showing up over and over, especially when no one is watching. The problem is we've been conditioned to believe in big breakthroughs, in all or nothing efforts, in waiting for the perfect time to make a grand shift. So we put everything on hold, waiting for a moment big enough to justify action. But that moment never comes because it's the wrong way to think. The biggest shifts are almost always the result of compounding daily choices. Not one choice that changes everything, but 1,000 choices that change one thing at a time. Every time you decide to do the hard thing instead of the easy one, you move closer. Every time you wake up and show up instead of staying in bed and justifying why you shouldn't, you reinforce identity, not motivation, not luck, identity. You're either becoming someone who takes control or someone who lets life dictate their direction. The gap between who you are and who you want to be is bridged by decisions. Not wishes, not dreams, not talk, just decisions. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. That's the trick your brain plays. It zooms out and shows you the mountain, not the next step. It floods you with every problem you'll have to solve, every habit you'll need to break, every change you'll need to make. And if you listen to that voice, you freeze. So instead of solving everything, solve the next 5 minutes, make the next right decision, do the next hard thing. When you narrow the scope, you regain power. And that power is what creates progress. You don't build a strong future by changing your entire life overnight. You build it by making small, aligned choices that compound into something unshakable. It's the decision to drink water instead of soda, to open the laptop and work for 10 minutes when you feel like scrolling, to speak up instead of staying silent, to be honest instead of hiding behind excuses. These aren't random acts, they're seeds. And every seed you plant grows into something bigger than you realize. The people who seem unstoppable aren't doing magic, they're just consistent. They've made peace with boring progress, with quiet victories, with showing up on the days when it would be easier to take a break. They've learned that the difference between who they are and who they used to be isn't in a single event. It's in hundreds of micro decisions they made when no one was clapping, no one was cheering, and no one was watching. Small decisions are deceptive, they're easy to make, and just as easy to avoid. You tell yourself skipping one workout doesn't matter. That one day off won't change anything. That you'll start next week. But what you don't realize is that every time you avoid the small decision, you reinforce delay. You strengthen indecision. You give power to your resistance. But every time you lean in, every time you move forward even just a little, you weaken that resistance. You chip away at inertia. And eventually momentum takes over. The power of a small decision isn't in the moment itself. It's in what it proves to you. It proves that you're not waiting anymore, that you're not trapped, that you're capable of movement, however small. And once you have proof, the next step becomes easier because confidence grows through evidence. You build belief by taking aligned action, not by waiting for the stars to align. Your future self is shaped by what you do when you don't feel ready, when you're tired, stressed, uncertain. That version of you that's thriving, grounded, strong, they're not built in comfort. They're built in these small, uncomfortable decisions you make when it'd be easier to postpone change. That version is waiting for you, not in a far-off dream, but on the other side of your next decision. You don't need more time, more talent, or more chances. You need a shift in perspective. You've been told to wait for motivation, to search for purpose, to hope for clarity, to expect someone else to show up with the answers. But that mindset ends now, because the truth is simple and undeniable. Everything you're waiting for begins with what you choose to do next. Motivation is not some divine spark you wait for. It's the fire you light by showing up and acting. Laziness is not your identity. It's a signal that you've drifted away from purpose. Clarity isn't something that strikes you from the sky. It's something that unfolds step by step as you move. No one is coming to save you. And that's the greatest news of all, because it means you've always had the power. And your future, it isn't written in grand plans or distant goals. It's built right now with the next small, disciplined decision you make. This isn't about hype. This is about reclaiming your life. No one is going to hand you greatness, but if you're willing to stop waiting, stop hesitating, and start building, then everything can change. Not someday, not when it feels perfect, but today, right now, from exactly where you are.